The fluorescent light above her head buzzed. The bank manager looked down at her shoes, where the sole had started to separate from the leather. He smiled. It was not a kind smile. He leaned back in his chair and asked her, in a voice the whole lobby could hear, what exactly she thought she was doing in his bank on a Tuesday morning. He had a coffee in his hand. He had not offered her any. She had her grandmother's old coat on. The pockets were empty. Her name was Maya Chen. She was 28 years old, and the piece of paper tucked into the inner pocket of that coat was going to be worth more than every dollar inside that bank that morning. Have you ever walked into a place where you did not belong, and stood very still, and felt every set of eyes in the room? Tonight's story is not a scary story. It is a quiet one. It is the kind of story that does not jump out at you. It sits next to you on the bus. It waits in line with you at the grocery store. It happens to people who do not raise their voice, who do not push back, who do not ask for anything more than the small thing they came in for. The story you are about to hear has been told in 100 small ways around kitchen tables and front porches. It has been told about cashiers, doctors, teachers, and one bank manager in a town you have probably never heard of. The town is Ridgemont, Ohio. The bank is First Valley National on Main Street. The manager's name is Brad Holloway. The girl's name is Maya Chen. And the morning the story takes place, it was 23 degrees outside, and the salt trucks had not come down her road yet. Sit back. Let me walk you through the whole thing. It was 9:47 in the morning, on a Tuesday in February, when Maya Chen walked into the First Valley National Bank on Main Street in Ridgemont, Ohio. The bell above the door made a small brass sound. The heat inside the bank hit her face, and her glasses fogged up for a second. She pushed them up with her thumb. The counter was 6 feet away. There were 3 bank officers working the windows, and one manager standing at the desk by the door. His nameplate said Brad Holloway, Senior Branch Manager. His coffee cup said First Valley National on the side. His shoes were brown leather and polished. Maya's shoes were black, and the left sole had been glued twice. She waited until the man at the front desk was free. She did not skip anyone in line. There were 4 people ahead of her, and she stood behind the 4th. Maya was 28 years old. She had been the only child of 2 parents who had moved to the United States from a small town in southern China when she was 3. Her mother worked the night shift at a packaging plant 20 miles north of town. Her father had been a cook at the same diner on Route 9 for 19 years. Maya had grown up in the same small apartment above that diner. The apartment had 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen where the oven had 2 working burners. Maya had gone to Ridgemont High and graduated in the top third of her class. She had gone to the state university on a partial scholarship and majored in accounting because numbers had always made her feel calm. She had worked 2 jobs through college. She had never once borrowed money she could not pay back in the same month. She owned her car, a 2007 silver Toyota Corolla with 211,000 miles on it. She owned her apartment, a small 1-bedroom on Birch Street that her grandmother had helped her with the down payment on, years before anyone in town knew her grandmother was sick. Maya had 2 coats. One was from a thrift store in the next town over. The other was her grandmother's, a long dark wool coat with 2 missing buttons and a small tear in the lining near the left pocket. The coat she wore to the bank that morning was her grandmother's. She had worn it on purpose. She had not told anyone she was wearing it on purpose. The morning had started the way most of Maya's mornings started. Her alarm went off at 5:45. She made a single cup of coffee in a chipped white mug and drank it standing up at the kitchen sink. She read the same 3 sections of the local paper she always read. She checked on her grandmother's medication list on the fridge. She made herself a piece of toast with peanut butter and ate it on the way out the door. She left the apartment at 6:20, walked to the Corolla in the parking lot behind the building, and scraped the frost off the windshield with the edge of a plastic gift card she kept in the glove box for that very reason. She drove to the bank the long way, down Bell Avenue, because Bell Avenue had a stoplight at the corner of Elm, and the engine idled better when it got a slow warm-up from a stop. She had gotten dressed that morning the same way she got dressed most mornings. Jeans she had owned for 3 years. A black turtleneck with a small pill of fuzz near the collar. Boots she had resoled once with shoe glue from a hardware store. Her grandmother's coat on top. She had checked herself in the mirror by the door. She had not looked like a woman who was going to walk into a bank and change a man's Tuesday. She had looked, by any fair measure, like a woman who had somewhere to be and not a lot of time to get there. The first wrong thing was small. It was the way Brad Holloway looked at her when she stepped up to the desk. He did not look at her face. He looked at her coat. He looked at the tear in the lining near her left pocket. He looked at her shoes. Then he looked back down at the paper on his desk, the way a person does when they have already decided what kind of person you are. He said, in a voice that carried to the two women on the bench behind her, "Can I help you?" It was not a question. It was a door that was already half shut. He did not ask her to sit down. He did not offer her a chair. He took a sip of his coffee and kept the cup near his mouth, like he was about to say something else and wanted to have something in his hand when he said it. Maya said, "Good morning. My name is Maya Chen. I have an account here, and I would like to check the balance on that account today." She said it clearly. She said it without a smile on her face, but without a frown either. She said it the way you say the address of a house you have been to 100 times. Brad looked at the smaller woman next to him, a teller named Patrice who had been at the branch for 15 years, and there was a small movement in his face that was not a smile. It was the kind of thing that lives on the side of a person's mouth when they think the person in front of them cannot see it. Maya saw it. She did not react to it. She had spent the last 4 months learning how not to react to things like that, because the last 4 months had not been easy months, and the person who had kept her steady through them had been the one coat she was wearing that morning. The second wrong thing happened when Brad asked her to take a seat. He gestured with his coffee cup to the bench by the window. He said, "Have a seat over there. Someone will be with you shortly," the way you say it to a person you are about to forget. He turned back to his computer before Maya had finished saying thank you. Maya walked to the bench and sat down. She did not pull out her phone. She did not look around the lobby. She sat with her hands on her knees and looked at the clock on the wall above the tellers. The clock said 10:01. She had told her supervisor at the packaging plant where her mother worked that she would be back by 10:30. She had 2 more meetings that day. She had not eaten breakfast number 2 of her day yet, the small apple she kept in her coat pocket for the walk back to the car. The third wrong thing happened when Brad walked past her bench to get a fresh coffee from the small machine by his office. He did not look at her as he walked past. He did not say anything. The 2 women on the bench next to her looked at her shoes the way he had looked at her shoes. One of them whispered something to the other one. Maya heard part of it. She heard the word coupon. She heard the part about the food pantry. She did not react. She had heard worse things in the last 4 months from people who had not meant to be cruel, and who had been cruel anyway, because that is what people sound like when they think you cannot hear them. The fourth wrong thing did not happen with Brad. It happened with his assistant, the woman named Patrice, who walked over to Maya 14 minutes later and said, in a voice that sounded like a hand laid gently on a shoulder, "Miss Chen, Mr. Holloway will be with you in just a moment. Can I get you a water or anything while you wait?" It was the only kind thing anyone said to Maya in that bank that morning. Maya said, "No, thank you. I am fine." She said it the way you say it when you are not fine, but you are not going to make it anyone else's problem. Patrice nodded and walked back to her window. Maya looked at the clock. It said 10:22. At 10:26, Brad Holloway walked out of his office with a piece of paper in his hand. The paper had come from the courier service that morning at 6. The paper had been sitting on his desk since then, under a blank form for a home equity line of credit. The paper had a name on it and a number under it. The number was $4,287,650.23. The name above the number was Maya Chen. Brad walked over to where Maya was sitting. He sat down on the bench next to her, on the other side of the 2 whispering women, and he looked at her face for the first time that morning. He did not look at her coat. He did not look at her shoes. He looked at her face. He said, "Miss Chen, I am very sorry for the delay. Would you please come with me to my office?" His voice had changed. His voice had gone down a half step, the way a man's voice goes down when he is trying not to be heard by the people behind him. Maya stood up. She followed him into his office. He shut the door behind her. He sat down in his big leather chair. He did not ask her to sit down. He just looked at the paper. He looked at her. He said, "Miss Chen, I have to ask. The balance on this account is $4,287,650.23. He paused. He said, "Is this account yours?" Maya said, "It is my grandmother's account that was transferred into my name this morning. I was told by the estate attorney at 6:30 that the funds had cleared. I came here to verify the transfer and to confirm that my grandmother's outstanding medical bills could now be paid in full." Brad said, "I see." He said it twice. The second time he said it, his hand made a small movement under the desk that Maya did not see, but his assistant did, and the assistant closed her own eyes for a second in the way that people close their eyes when they already know exactly what is coming. Maya reached into the inside pocket of her grandmother's coat. She took out a single folded piece of paper. She unfolded it on Brad's desk and slid it across to him. It was a letter from her grandmother's attorney. The letter said, in clear black type on letterhead, that the full balance of the account titled Chen Family Trust had been transferred into the name of Maya Chen as the sole beneficiary, that the funds had been processed through the Central Clearinghouse at 5:55 that morning, and that the bank at which the account was held had been notified by courier at 6. The letter said that the bank manager at the receiving branch had been instructed, by name, to give the named beneficiary Mr. Brad Holloway. Maya did not point at the sentence. She did not read it out loud. She just slid the paper across the desk and sat back in her chair. She did not smile. She did not frown. She waited. What Brad Holloway did for the next 40 seconds is something he has never talked about in public. He read the letter twice. He put it down. He picked it up again. He opened his mouth once and did not say a word. Then he said, "Miss Chen, I owe you an apology. I am so sorry for how you were treated in my lobby this morning. I am sorry for making you wait. I am sorry for the way I treated you when you first came up to my desk. You did not deserve any of that, and I want you to know that I am going to look into it personally." Maya said, "Thank you, Mr. Holloway. I appreciate that." She did not ask him for a refund on her time. She did not ask him for a donation to a charity. She did not ask him for anything except to be allowed to leave and to please ensure her grandmother's medical bills were paid from the account that day. Brad said, "Of course, Miss Chen. We will take care of that right now." Maya stood up. She buttoned the top button of her grandmother's coat, the one button that was still there. She walked out of his office, through the lobby, past the bench where the two women had been whispering, and out the front door of the bank. The bell above the door made the same small brass sound it had made when she walked in. The heat inside the bank left her face the second the door closed. She walked to her silver Corolla. She sat down. She put her hands on the steering wheel and did not move for a full minute. Then she started the car. She drove back to Bell Avenue. She drove back to the packaging plant. She clocked in at 10:41, 11 minutes late, and apologized to her supervisor, who told her she had been worried about her. Maya worked the rest of her shift. She did not talk to anyone else about the bank that day. She did not post anything about it online. She wore the same coat home that night. The thing she still does differently, the thing she has done differently since that morning, is small enough that no one has ever noticed it in her life but her. Every time she walks into a place where she does not look like she belongs, she takes her thumb and pushes her glasses up the way she did that morning at the bank, and for a half second before anyone in the room decides who she is, she lets herself be the only one who knows. If you have ever been the person on the other side of a counter, in a lobby, in a waiting room, in a line, wearing the wrong coat, holding the wrong bag, sitting on the wrong kind of chair, and felt the room decide who you were before you opened your mouth, this story was for you. The truth is that we all do it. We all look. We all decide. We all have a half second in which we sort the people in front of us into the ones who matter and the ones who do not. And most of us are wrong more often than we are right. And we do not find out we were wrong until years later, when the person we dismissed walks back into our life, and we cannot take back the face we made. The next time you are standing on the other side of someone who looks like they do not belong, take the extra second. Offer the chair. Offer the water. Look them in the eyes before you look at the shoes. It costs you nothing, and once in a long while, it will save you the worst Tuesday of your career. If this story stayed with you, leave a quiet like on the video. If you want more stories like this, where the small detail changes the whole room, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. I will be here next week with another one. Thank you for staying to the end. Good night.